All right, ladies and gentlemen, what it do, what it is, what's happening, what the business be, what up, though? It's your guy Nate, back with another extraordinary episode of the Extraordinary Exchange podcast, powered by the Extraordinary Investment Group. 12 Black men in the community, enriching the lives of our members and the community through education and smart financial strategies. We're bringing dope entrepreneurs, creatives here to this platform and giving y'all game, giving y'all inspiration, giving y'all what needs to be given and having conversations that we don't always have. Got my co-host Benz in the building. What's good, Benz?
We back again. How you feeling today, sir?
I'm feeling phenomenal, yo. We got a first. We got many firsts on the pod today. So we
got a debut episode.
We got a debut episode talking about an industry that many of our listeners have wanted us to talk about. Many people have asked about. Gentlemen in the group are very well versed in it. But also want to bring to the podcast, y'all see we got the four squares. We got the four Hollywood squares tonight. We got a debut, one of the founding members of Extraordinary Investment Group. The gentleman does a lot for us behind the scenes. He's our philanthropic officer who's in charge of a lot of the E.I.G. Cares events where we fed folks, giving kids toys and all that good stuff. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Sean Sears. What's good, Sean?
How y'all doing?
Podium member of the Maryland Bud Tender of the Year competition. Don't forget that. You got to put that in the bio.
Hey. Number two, Bud Tender of the State of Maryland.
Appreciate it.
My bad. Didn't put the proper respect on this man's name. My apologies, sir. But in the four square, we have a phenomenal guest. You're going to hear about her story. She's a founder of a dispensary and holistic pharmacy called Foreign Daughter in Mississippi. Graduate of the Croft Institute down there at University of Mississippi. Also a proud graduate of HU, Howard University. She's got a background in global media specialist, and she's worn many hats over the years. But you'll hear about her story, hear about how she's trailblazing and just being a groundbreaking entrepreneur and a pioneer in the cannabis and wellness space. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Daria Gray. What's going on, Sederia?
Hey, everybody.
What up? All right, so let's just get into it. Let everybody know, a brief synopsis of who you are and what it is that you do while you're here on the podcast.
Yeah, so I have a dispensary in Mississippi, so that's the main reason why I'm here today. Foreign Daughter is a dispensary, and it's actually I'm the first franchisee to own a dispensary in the United States, and then we started in Mississippi, which is amazing. But my background, I have such a lot of different things in my background. So my family has a nonprofit organization in Mississippi, so that's really where I started after I graduated from Ole Miss. So I was there for 2 years learning the family business. After that, decided to go to Howard University to get my MBA. And after Howard, I went straight into corporate, and I was in corporate for, I think, about 10 years. So I started off at Boeing. Everyone knows about Boeing and all the stuff that's going on right now. But I started in Boeing in supplier relations, supplier management. I did government relations. I was on their lobbying team. Then I moved over to FedEx in Memphis, which is some of the reason why I'm back home as well, doing media relations there. And then I hopped into communications at Google. So I supported Google's COO with all of her communications. I was her ghostwriter, all that good stuff. So I did that. That was the latest thing. And now I'm in cannabis. So it's a lot of different things, a lot of different backgrounds that I've had that kind of led me to where I am today. I think what led me to cannabis was I've been in cannabis, doing cannabis for a while now, a long time. But when I moved to Boeing in Washington State, it was medicinal there at that time. And so I didn't really, doing cannabis in college, all that good stuff, we would do that. But I never really understood the real medicinal value of it until I got to Washington State. And got a card there and just really started learning about just everything else that comes with cannabis, right? And like how it really, really impacts people in a positive way. And so that kind of stuck with me. And so when I found out that Mississippi was going medicinal, I saw it on the ballot because I've always voted in Mississippi. I've never moved out of Mississippi, my voting power there. I really realized that it was an amazing opportunity for me to get into an industry that I knew about, I was aware of, that I had been participating in other states such as California, Washington State, Washington, D.C., all the places that I've lived. And so it just kind of made sense for me to come back home because that's something I wanted to do. I've always wanted to have a business back in Mississippi. And so I came back here to do it and just been rolling with it ever since. Left Google full time a couple of months ago. So I am doing this full time. This is really, really what I'm invested in. So I'm excited to be back at home doing what I love.
That's definitely a great, cool journey of
Yeah.
going from big corporate to a passion. Politically, Washington State versus Mississippi, very different climate, very different situation.
Yeah.
Explain kind of some of the difficulties of trying to grow that type of business in that type of environment in Mississippi, and how that's working out for you, and as a Black woman in the industry, how those things affecting you.
Oh yeah. So definitely, like you said, Ben's completely different, right? Completely different states. We're talking about red state versus blue state. We're talking about economically as well. A state that's considered poor versus one that's very, very extremely wealthy. Even the industries. So, Washington State's big on technology, where we're is agricultural and farming. So you can kind of see some of the pros and the cons just from that, like correlation there. So the biggest thing is, of course, being in Mississippi. If you're from Mississippi, you definitely have a leg up. So I knew when I came back, I went to Ole Miss for undergrad. I know that, there are certain things that I know. A lot of our governors come from Ole Miss. I know that I'm going to know whoever the governor is in the next 8 years, whatever. I probably went to school with them. We're probably cool. So I wanted to come back to be able to leverage my connections and the foundation that I've set here. But it's really difficult for people outside of Mississippi to like come in and have that same kind of stake. Whereas I'm not for sure, but I think in Washington State, it was a little bit easier because so many people come from all over, and they come in, you have a lot of like transplants, whereas Mississippi is born and bred in Mississippi. So that's really a big difference. But I think there's so much like opportunity there because there are so many people in Mississippi who don't fully understand cannabis. So that's another thing, is that lack of education in cannabis. But I see that as an opportunity. But for right now, the market is very, very ignorant, and not ignorant in just such a bad way, but ignorant as they truly don't know and understand the medicinal effects of it. So I'm constantly out on the ground trying to get people signed up, all of that. And they don't fully understand, I think, from a state perspective, the real economic impact and value that it can have on the state. So we have issues with having signing people up for, medicinal cards. And that's an issue because there's a very limited amount of conditions that qualifies, like 25. So, understanding, once again, going back to the educational piece. But the good things that I can see is Mississippi, we're known for farming, agriculture, all of that. So far, I have been visiting grows all across the state, some of the best weed that I've seen in a long time. And I mean, some of it, one of the places is definitely comparable to one of the facilities I saw in Colorado. So it's really cool because people, they've grown cotton, they've grown all different types of things. So it's just a bunch of green thumbs around here. So it's a lot of opportunity for people to really experiment and try new things and just kind of get a different kind of flower here, which is really, really, really cool. So I can see it's a lot of pros, but it's some cons as well. So we have to kind of work with the pros and the cons.
How long has it been medicinal in Mississippi?
It's been medicinal technically since about January of 2023. That's when the first dispensary opened, was January of last year. But it was a whole process. So it was on the ballot in November of 2021. Then it was basically with the Supreme Court, because the way that it got on the ballot was through the People Initiative 65. And so voters, I think we voted 76% for it. But Mississippi was like, wait, we can put something as big as this on an initiative. People can just add it on the ballot. And so they wanted to make sure it was constitutional because this had never happened before. And so it was held up in the Mississippi Supreme Court for 9 months. And so it was finally in 2022 upheld. But they also kind of put some stuff into place to where that doesn't happen anymore. So people can't just put stuff on the ballot. But thankfully, we're the first people, probably the last, as far as people being cannabis folks, to do that. And that probably won't happen again. But yeah, so the first dispensary opened last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you pushing to go recreational as well? Is that something you do, working on politically, or are you strictly trying to stay with the medicinal side?
I would love to go recreational just because of where I'm located. So I'm in Olive Branch, Mississippi. We are 2 minutes from the state line, the Tennessee state line. So Tennessee right now is not open for medicinal or rec. And as of right now, from what we're hearing, there's really no plans to open up until it probably goes rec, because there are so many advocates within Tennessee state that are against it. So that's a big opportunity for me, because right now a lot of folks in Tennessee are going to Arkansas and Missouri to buy flower, to buy, cannabis. And so there was an article released not too long ago that was saying that, we are talking about billion-dollar industries within Missouri, and that's made from other states where it's illegal. So there's a lot of money and a lot of revenue going outside of the state. But like I said, that's good for me in Mississippi. So yes, I am 100% for recreational. I cannot wait till that happens. That's really going to increase revenue. And I saw like an example of that with the Far and Daughter stores in Maryland, so going recreational, I think it was July of last year. So just kind of seeing that, transition, I'm like excited for that. So yes, I'm 100% for recreational, for sure. That's going to be big for us.
And just real quick, we're familiar with it, but it being an $18 billion industry, for the listeners who might not be familiar with what recreational versus medicinal means, just explain that real quickly, and how the economic impact that could have on Mississippi.
So the difference is medicinal, with medicinal, you have to have a prescription from a medical provider. In the state of Mississippi, that means that the medical provider has to be a licensed doctor. So you might go to a nurse practitioner, but there is a doctor that has to sign off on that prescription for you. And then whereas recreational, in a lot of states where like California and now Maryland, anyone can come in and buy cannabis. So you don't have to have a prescription for it. You can just come in and purchase it. So we have a lot of states where it's still like medicinal and it's still recreational. There are different tax implications in different states for that. So in Mississippi, I'm not for sure how that's going to look. But right now in Mississippi, you're taxed for medicinal. Where in some states you're not taxed for medicinal use. But once we go recreational, I'm not for sure if that structure will stay the same. If, they'll alleviate just those taxes from medicinal and it'll only be for recreational, not for sure. But that's the biggest thing is medicinal, you have to have a prescription, and recreational, you don't have to have a prescription. You just come in and buy.
Access, all about access.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Sean, you were there during the transition to Maryland. What was the amount of people difference that you served per day? It was like a lot. Was a big difference?
Yes. I work at Far and Daughter in Maryland, and man, when July 1st hit, it went crazy. We saw a 200% increase in patients. We go not even patients no more; they're customers now because they're recreational. We went from being a wellness center to now we are a dispensary. We're a dispensary because we see way more recreational patients than we see medical patients on a daily. Before it was July 1st and we was only medical, we would see probably maybe on a busy day, we would see probably 80 people. Man, now we seeing on a slow day 400 people. Like we just past Friday, this last Friday, we saw over 650 people.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Maryland loves weed, man. That's why I keep telling people Maryland loves weed. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing, though.
100%. All right, so Sederia, I'm regular Joe Schmo, right? And I know a little bit about weed. I've been partaking weed for a while, and I want to get into the cannabis space. What is that process like? Because I know it's not easy. And what advice would you give to someone trying to step into the dispensary ownership space?
Yeah. So the first thing is, what state are you in? That's really gonna tell how easy or how hard it's gonna be, or what kind of, things that you kind of have to look out for as far as obstacles and opportunities. So, and I'm familiar with a few other states too, because I was kind of looking around, but for Mississippi, very similar to like Oklahoma in the structure, it's unlimited licensing. So you can come in, you can get a license. You have to be a Mississippi resident first, though, or you have to have someone on your team that's a Mississippi resident in order to get a license for dispensing or any of the other parts. So you can do manufacturing, you can do processing, testing, transportation, and then cultivation. So for me, I have a dispensing license, but there are some dispensaries who have all the different licenses except for testing. Testing is the only one where you can't, if you have one piece of it, you can't have testing because it's obviously a conflict of interest. But yeah, so it's unlimited licensing. But in Mississippi, you have to be at least 1,500 feet away from churches, schools, daycares. And I don't know if you all are aware, but Mississippi has the most churches per capita. So that's actually pretty limiting. So it's not ever going to be an Oklahoma situation just because of the way that they have it regulated. And also counties can opt in and opt out. So not all the counties in Mississippi have opted in, and some don't plan to opt in at all. So that's the first thing, is kind of understanding the landscape of your state. Is it unlimited? Is it limited? Because in those limited licensing states, such as Alabama coming up, which is going to be highly restrictive. I heard that Georgia's pretty much going to be highly restrictive as well. You have to really, really play a political game on the front end of that. So if you're wanting to go into a state with limited licenses, you have to really, really work on that lobbying, getting to know people, and getting to know other people in industry within the state, actually your state legislator, so you can have that access. So in Mississippi, kind of going back there, that's the first thing, is understanding the landscape. Second thing is the capital raising. So it's expensive to own any license in Mississippi, particularly the dispensing license. So your licensing fees are going to be very expensive. And I mean, it depends on every state. So I'm going to say it's $40,000 for the licensing fee. So you have a $15,000 fee that's non-refundable and a $25,000 application fee. And every year after that is $25,000 to renew that licensing. Then you have to build out the dispensary. But before you build out the dispensary, you have to have your location locked in. So getting your location, getting the design together, building out the dispensary, all of that can be, pretty pricey. So like I said, kind of going back to having that capital that you need in order to open up a dispensary. I've heard, some dispensaries have opened up for, 50,000. I've heard others have opened up for 400,000. It really, really depends on where you like, what kind of mark you want to leave in the industry. Do you want like something that people consider a pot shop, or do you want a beautiful, like well thought out, designed dispensary? It just depends. It depends on what your preference is. What I'm seeing in Mississippi is people, they enjoy the beautiful dispensaries, but the most important thing right now is customer service, how you treat the people that are coming through the door. So, if you don't want to go on the higher end, just make sure you have your customer service on lock, because that's something that's really important. But yeah, once you get that capital together, whether it's investors or you have other businesses that have been successful, then it's getting the doors open. So it's the politics game, your local folks. Who are you working with in the city that you've chosen? I'm in Olive Branch. I love the city of Olive Branch. They have been amazing to me. They have been great partners. DeSoto County, the county that I'm in, has been amazing. So, it really also depends on that as well. Once again, just like where you're choosing to be at. Are you in a difficult county, or are you dealing with a county that is a little bit more, cannabis friendly? So, that's something I should have even said that at the beginning of when you're picking your location, trying to pick a cannabis friendly county or city or municipality, however you call it. That's something that's or parish, whatever you call it. It's really important. So that's another piece of it too. So, politics, play, understanding your landscape, getting your money together, all of that just kind of plays into opening up. And once you open your doors, then you're going into running a retail operations. Cannabis is different from other retail operations. So once you open those doors, you're dealing with product that is high security, high value. We can only have so much in our inventory every month. Every state is different, as far as how much you can keep in your inventory month to month. Our inventory is low. We cannot keep a lot of inventory in the state of Mississippi. So that's constantly me having to manage my inventory, FIFO, first in, first out. We have SKUs. I don't know if SKUs is basically the serial number for each and every single cannabis product that comes in there. We have to make sure that that's correct. So all of those day-to-day things have to be managed on top of making sure your customers are happy and pleased and the pricing. So all of that comes into owning a dispensary. It's a lot, but I think it's very rewarding.
It's funny, real quick, Benz. I'm a pharmacy technician by trade. Been in that field for 24 years now. So it's the same thing. And I purposely started as a pharmacy supply tech when I was up in SeaTac. Shout out to SeaTac. I was stationed at Fort Lewis. And but yeah, just seeing the bird's eye view of how the industry or how pharmacy works, like what you're explaining is pretty much running a pharmacy.
That is 100%. It's literally a pharmacy. We actually have to report everything to, the prescription, PMP is what they're called, prescription medication board or whatever. We have to report everything to them. So it is literally a pharmacy, and it's taking that seriously. The security around it, the reporting, everything.
So I'm happy you said it's rewarding, because that was going to. So as for my business hat on, all the regulations, the fees.
Yeah.
As a young person who wanted to start a business, I feel like it's easier paths to go. What do you see as the rewarding aspect of being a trailblazer in this industry?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I think for me, I've been in corporate for so long, pushing other people's visions and what they want. I think the number one thing for me is I'm doing something that I know is making an impact. So when my patients come in, it's the best feeling for them to come in and be like, this worked for me. I have PTSD, I have cancer, I have terminal patients. They come back and they're like, this made me feel better. This is the first time I've been able to sleep in months or in years. That's the number one thing that's the most rewarding for me. It's just really, really being able to see the impact that I make. Not that I wasn't making an impact in corporate, because I was, but it's different. You're just kind of like, I wrote this speech and it's super inspirational. I'm sure it inspires somebody to do something great, but it's just different when you know that you're physically making somebody feel better. Also for me, being back in my community, being back in the state of Mississippi, that's like top for me. Being able to make an impact in my state. I've been, like I said, been all over, lived in different states, but being able to kind of come back to a state that needs it, that literally is always begging us to come back. Like, why are y'all leaving the state? That's another thing. So I can come back. And then, of course, the economic part of it, so it's a struggle right now. We all say if we can make it the first 2 years, we're good. But, I'm kind of thugging it out right now. It's a lot. I'm not sleeping a whole lot. It's a lot of work. But I know that once it starts to flow, then it'll be good, and that creates generational wealth for like my family too. So I'm doing this for my family, for, my nieces and nephews, all 7 of them, so that I have something to leave back, to have a legacy to leave back. So that's why it's rewarding to me, because it's like hitting all 3 of the things that I've always wanted to hit, whereas when I was at Google, of course, it was, generational wealth, all of that was good, but I just didn't feel like I was making that impact. But here it's like, it kind of hits all 3 of those major things that I wanted to do. So
I love that answer, because I think a lot of times with the industry, and as you say, especially in your situation, the medical aspect, and how for some people, it really is a lifesaver. It really does help wean you off of harsher, more expensive drugs that could be harsh for you. So, and I don't think most people who are not in that understanding don't understand the whole aspect of it because they don't see it as such.
Mm-mm. They don't. No, and you're 100% right. Like that's the biggest thing in Mississippi is the educational piece of it. Like, trying to get them to understand that this is not dope. I keep hearing dope, and that's so weird to me. Somebody sent me a meme on Instagram and they were like, why are boomers saying dope? That sounds very much like powder, white powder. It's not dope. But just like understanding that first of all it is an herb, it's a plant, it's not, I don't consider it a drug, to be quite honest. And it's for relief, it's relieving pain. People are sleeping, people that have MS, cancer, Crohn's disease, seizures, all of that. So I'm constantly explaining that to people. But sometimes it gets to a place where they don't understand until they're in that situation. So I had a person at my church that was recently diagnosed with MS. And so I was like, oh, this is a good time to talk to them. And so after talking to them, I feel like I converted him. So he's working on getting his car now. So that's something that's the biggest piece of it is the educational part.
That is true, because a lot of people do not know the benefits of it medical. They just think of marijuana and it's such a bad stigma that they just keep going with the bad stigma, but not doing their research on it and looking at all the health benefits of it. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it. You're right. And I know you see it every day with all those
I
patients.
see it. I see it every day. I see it every day. It is
Yes.
every day I get at least 30 patients to tell me, hey man, this is working. I haven't been able to sleep. I've been taking this, I've been taking that, but I took this and now I can sleep. Oh man, thank you. I was like, hey, I appreciate it. People come in who are trying to stop drinking. They come in.
He ain't the number 2 bud tender in Maryland for no reason. Should have been number 1. But no, I just saw the way his face lit up because we hear about the stories all the time. Just in passing, he'll without saying names, of course. It was like, oh man, I had somebody come in that, was this and that. And I had my regulars, and just seeing him, ingratiated in that community and helping folks is definitely a passion of his as well. So shout out to you, Sean.
My question to you is, has there been any obstacles that you have faced being a Black woman in this industry?
So I think for me, the short answer is yes, but I think I kind of took my lessons from corporate and I kind of put those in on the front end so that I wouldn't feel as big of a blow on some situations where I thought there might be some issues. Example, negotiating, finding an area, an olive branch. I talked to a few people who couldn't even find places to open up dispensaries because no one would want to work with them. But then now we have 4 dispensaries in Olive Branch right now and 2 that are about to open up. So they're working with somebody. So I just kind of felt like coming in. I'm originally from Starkville, which is about 2.5 hours south of Olive Branch. I didn't have as many connections in that area. So I kind of let some people negotiate on my behalf because I just didn't know how they would receive me, honestly, as a Black woman. Now that I'm here and I have a space, I feel that, maybe they would have been fine with it. I don't know. But I just didn't. That's a risk I didn't want to take. So I did. Sometimes I will have people negotiating like on my behalf before. And then once they see me and they work with me after the deals are done, it's great, but I just don't know. And that comes from, like I said, previous experiences, whether it's corporate or open up a business or dealing with clients. They kind of see a Black face sometimes and they're just not for sure. Now, I would say Black women in general do have a good, we have a good reputation of getting stuff done and closing. But still, when it comes to those deals, you never really know. So I have to be super sure. But I can say, though, there hasn't been any blatant situations where it's like, oh, that happened because I'm Black, or, that happened because I'm a Black woman. So far, I haven't. But we all know, and particularly where I'm from in Mississippi, it's never going to read fully in your face sometimes when it comes to business. Now, when it comes to straight up racism, I've dealt with it blatant, in Mississippi and the Deep South. But unlike what people think about the Deep South, it's not always like that. It's a lot of things that are closed doors. So I try my best to kind of alleviate those by just sometimes sending in somebody that don't look like me, to be quite honest. So that's what I do sometimes. Yeah.
Such a key point that you focused on. I want to sit there for a little bit. So again, $18 billion industry. I believe 80% of it is men already, and only 2% of the industry dispensary owners are Black.
That's correct.
You already got a male-dominated industry, a white-dominated industry, and you coming in as a Black woman. But the one thing that you said from your relationships from going to Ole Miss, the folks that you know in politics probably were, you were rubbing shoulders with them, on campus in the university. So in business, all business is relationships, right? You talk about the customer service, you talked about taking care of folks, making sure that experience is pleasurable. Talk about like just the importance of relationships. So a lot of times relationships will get you places that your book smart and your expertise can't get you. So yeah, talk about how that's been beneficial for you down there in Mississippi.
So beneficial. Honestly, I can't say that's one thing about the South, the relationships part, and I know it's everywhere, but it's super deeply rooted in the Deep South relationships, because a lot of people do leave, but the people that stay, they're there and they're not leaving, right? And even if you think about it, like us as Black folks, like where's your grandmama from? Where's your great grandma from? Probably Mississippi, Alabama. So it's just a lot of deep rooted folks that are in Mississippi. So relationships have been extremely important for me within building, just a presence in Mississippi. The actual like getting the license and all of that, not as much, but just me trying to grow my business, me getting the word out. Since advertising is completely banned in our industry, you really have to focus on your personal brand, as well as like trying to find a way to not get kicked off Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff because you're posting pictures of weed. Like that literally happened to me today. I got flagged today. So it's just something that's difficult. So those relationships are extremely important. Also keeping your business going, having relationships with legislators or whoever is important too, because when things happen, they can talk to you about it, give you a heads up, or tell you, hey, I'm on Capitol Hill. This is what we're talking about. That stuff is really, really important, and it saves me from having to spend a bunch of money on lobbying dollars all the time. If you have people that are already there at the state Senate that can at least tell you, and it's not even really intel, like inside information, it's just information, period, that I don't have to go searching for. If I have someone that's like, hey, I'm in the legislature, I was in the chambers today, and there's this bill coming up with cannabis, that's something I can find publicly, but who has the time to sit there and do all of that? So it's things like that as well, those relationships. And then sometimes it's as simple as if you're, having connections with someone that's like an official or anything that has anyone that has some kind of influence in Mississippi, them getting the word out about your brand as well. So it's all of those pieces of it. It's extremely important. So those are things that as an outsider that you're not from Mississippi, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to do a little bit more work to build that relationship with people. Whereas for me, it's like I went to Ole Miss, so it's just on the text or, the group chat, hey, I'm a senator here. I can definitely get your word out. Or, hey, I'm on city council here or there. It's easier to tap into those resources. So it's really, really important. I think relationships have been extremely important. And I think it's something that's going to continue to be important. Right now I'm at 4 months. It'll be 4 months in a week that my dispensary has been open. So I haven't even fully leveraged the importance. Yeah, thank you. I haven't fully even leveraged, those contacts and that and the opportunities there. So I'm still figuring that out myself.
So while you're at this early growth stage and not able to advertise, how do you plan on growing just even the awareness of the existence of your business and what you offer without crossing those boundaries? In that conservative community, you can't really say too much, do too much in certain places. So how do you do you have a plan for that to just grow the awareness of your business altogether in that area with those restrictions on it?
Difficult, so difficult. My competitor, I call him my competitor, but who has a dispensary in my city as well, put a lawsuit, put in a lawsuit against the state of Mississippi you know, um, for advertising cannabis. And
Mm,
that's something that if that would have been, if that actually would have went through right now, they struck it down. I think he's appealing or something right now. But if that would have went through, that sets a precedent for the entire, United States. So it's a big deal. So what we're doing right now to kind of what we're doing now to figure this out is we're trying to leverage social media as best as we can. It's difficult because even if you have cannabis anywhere, you're constantly getting flagged. I have friends who post cannabis, literally plants all the time, but because they're not tagged as a cannabis dispensary, they can get away with it a little bit better. So, constantly trying to figure out social media, creative ways to advertise on social media, things like this, podcasts, having friends at, traditional media. I used to do media. So, I do have some contacts still in media. So getting the word out via print media. It's a little bit more difficult with the other forms of media other than print. So live media and all that, it gets a little tricky there. But just trying to find ways. Another thing is involvement in the community. So constantly just being in the community, setting up at I don't know, just we're sponsoring a golf tournament.
mm,
Like everyone's going to be at the golf tournament. They love golf. It's an older crowd. They need prescriptions and pain medications. A lot of my patients anyway are 40 plus and up. So that's a good way for us to kind of get the word out. So we're constantly trying to do things in the community, trying to figure out how to navigate this social media game, which is difficult. And then literally word of mouth, word of mouth. So I kind of think about those days before social media, even before the internet. How are people finding out about things? I just watched the Freaknik documentary, and
yeah.
so
Yep, yep,
and you had
yep,
all these people showing up to Atlanta, word of
yep.
mouth.
Word
So
of
Mom.
that
mouth.
was like inspirational to me. Every time I look at stuff, like I'm looking at it from a business like entrepreneurial lens. So I was looking at Freaknik, and I was like, they did all that with word of mouth. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I do that? How do I do that without advertising? So, it's those type of things right now. And I know it's possible because it happened before the internet, right? So I have to just kind of dig into those tools from the 1980s to get the word out, honestly.
Street teams, fire,
Yeah,
windshield, like all kind of
there we
that.
go.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Wow. I'm just thinking how, Sway. Like you hear everyone nowadays talking about how they need to be like double down. They need to be on. If you're not on social media, your business is gonna die. And y'all literally can't do so many things
I do.
on social media. So other than showing the flower, like are there certain keywords you can't have in your posts or certain like what are some of the restrictions on social media?
You can Google. You can Google list words.
Mm,
It's a bunch of them. Even they'll sometimes they even kind of get me. They've realized that flour,
hmm
is kind of what we're saying now.
right.
So there is reviews for flour to make sure what kind of flour they're displaying. So a lot of things. So, outside of just cannabis and all of that, just sometimes it can even be quarters, ounces. It just kind of depends on how you put it with other words. So it's a lot of words. It's a long list of hashtags that if you put it on there, they will literally block you like the hashtag, or they'll block the post from being searchable. So you have to be so strategic in the words that you use, because if you use the wrong words, they're going to ban it. They're going to shadow ban it, is what they call. And you can't, no one will be able to have access to your post except for your followers. And then a lot of times they have to go to your page to find it. So yeah, it's tricky.
And see, this is what we've been talking about, this negative stigma of cannabis. They
Yeah,
need to get that negative stigma out so people can advertise and put it on
yeah.
Instagram. Like, this is just bad. It's terrible.
Exactly. It's so bad. And like the scheduling, descheduling cannabis, that's going to help tremendously, because we're not going to be seen as, a drug, like, well, a high scheduled drug,
Right.
so That's going to be so important for
So
us.
early you talked about lobbying stuff.
Yes.
Local government, state government. Are you involved any on that federal scheduling side of things? Like, are you involved any kind of way in that as well?
No, so I am not. I am not involved on the federal level. I'm really trying to fight this state game right now. But a big thing though is I'm trying to figure out how to be more involved on the federal level. That's something I'm still trying to figure out. Like, where is my place in that? So outside of me just advocating and being an advocate, being a voter, doing just kind of my individual, due diligence on things, what can I do as a business owner now? So that's the federal piece is something I'm still working on trying to navigate. But I know what I can do on a state level,
Right.
and I do that for sure. But yeah, still trying to figure out the federal piece of it. Like, what can I do to make a real impact?
Because that's the elephant in the room. That's the issue. Even like it's you talked about the different levels from transportation to grow, all these different issues that we have from state to state, and the patchwork of it are all kind of in limbo, waiting for some type of federal situation that we never know if when will come. And so it's just interesting to watch the industry grow in that gray area, because nobody really has 100% sure of how it's going to pan out 2, 3, 5 years from now.
And the election too coming up, right? So if the word on the street is, and it's different rumors every year, there's like it's going to get rescheduled every year. There's talk about that, but now we're in an election year. And so if it doesn't get, rescheduled before the election, there's a likelihood it might not get rescheduled anytime soon, because, people are trying to live up to these political promises and gain voters. So after the election, like, what incentive is there, right? What incentive is there to the government in some ways from a tax perspective when we're paying so much more than any other industry in taxes? So, I was open for 2 weeks in last year, and I still had a tax bill, and I was open for 2 weeks. Wow. So it's ridiculous, not being able to write off simple expenses such as, the trips that I take to visit facilities, everything, like, the things that we use, like, amortizing the furniture and all of that, that's not directly with touching the plant. Like, I can't do anything. I can't write these things off like a regular company can. So it's so many tax incentives or on their end, or tax, there's a lot of tax liability on the cannabis industry, but the government's getting all that money. So what incentive is there to schedule or reschedule after the election? Now, before, there's definitely some incentive there.
I never even thought about that timetable, because like you said, every year I follow from a stock side. So every year I'm watching the stock ticker. Tilray stock starts moving. They say, Senator introduces bill, whatever the case may be, every year, like you said. And so once again this year, a couple of things have happened. It's election season, but I never thought about it. Like you're saying, is if it doesn't happen in this window, it's not any incentive in the near future to do anything about it.
No, not for politicians, not for the government, not that, to be honest, no, that's why it doesn't happen. So it's like we have to really, really advocate over the next, 7 months, or so. We really, really have to advocate hard for it. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. We'll see. I hope so, because that really helps me, because this is my first full tax year. So that's going to lessen my bill, but we'll see. But I really hope so. And even from, like I said, I talked about those incentives, but just the descheduling on an equity level as well, how it's going to help Black folks, brown people, just Black and brown people in general, when it comes to fighting against the prison pipeline, all of these things. Mississippi, has a huge prison system that is built off the backs of folks who are in jail for marijuana. All of us, especially as Black people, I'm sure everyone has a cousin or somebody or knows someone that has went to jail for weed. And particularly in Mississippi, Louisiana, it's really tough in Louisiana as well. So the descheduling is going to be helpful for all of that, because it gives a case as to, first of all, kind of getting people out of jail, but also lowering sentences. So yeah, it's a big help to everybody. I hope that happens sooner than later.
And I think that's an unspoken part of the descheduling part of it is that if we do pass XYZ bill, A, what do we do with people that are currently incarcerated? B, what do we do with people who have been adversely affected previously by it? It's a little different situation than we had previously on this scale in this country before, something like that. Because the amount of people that have been adversely affected both previously and also are currently incarcerated in the federal prison system. So, and that's something that I don't think people necessarily add into the equation of what happens. It's not just the shops were open. It's a whole lot of different steps to it that I don't think the average person puts into the equation. Like you said, so as a politician, if you're able to get the tax money and still kind of keep status quo happy, I never put all that together, but I appreciate that perspective. I like that.
Yeah, it's a lot to put together. It's so many elements of cannabis, because there's just so many people who are profiting off of cannabis not being fully, legal, right? So the pharmaceutical company obviously is number one. But then you have the prison, like I said, the prison pipelines. You have the tax incentives. Like, people are making money a lot. And then you have people who are jacking up the prices for just regular expenses, like business expenses, right? That might be like our banking fees. My banking fees are ridiculous. And I love my bank, seriously, but it's because of all the regulations, and they have to go through an audit of my bank account every month and all of these things. So it's just so many fees that are way higher than an average business would pay because of the risk that's associated with cannabis. So it's so many things that can be helped, but also, like I said, it's gonna hurt some people's pockets when it's fully legal and fully recreational too.
The funny thing about that is, just about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I called Sean. The other day, I'm listening to the radio, and I see no show at the Baltimore Arena, CGBF Bank Arena. And I've heard the name, never paid attention to it. And then I thought about it, like, I've never heard of this bank before. How do they have enough money to be the sponsor for the Baltimore Arena? Look it up. And it's the local bank that the cannabis industry uses in Maryland. And so I did a little more research, and it, like you said, dawned on me. Okay, bet. So now this bank is going to take on that risk, and they built up a whole industry big enough, isolated. The average person who doesn't in that industry wouldn't know anything about it, but now they have the full bank big enough to cater to the industry. What happens when your truists in your U.S. banks are able to fund and transport that money? So how does that transition happen? And if it once again, is it even advantageous to happen if these industries are able to already be built and run and make enough money to sponsor the local arena downtown and do it just fine? What's the point?
Exactly. And that's the piece that's kind of scary, that a lot of people don't talk about as much, as what you just said. We're functioning, right? And, I wouldn't say we're not functioning at 100% efficiency, but we're functioning at about 60% maybe. And if that works, some people will be like, oh, well, why fix it? Why hurt the pockets of these different industries if we're functioning? That's what sucks. And I think that's some of the reason why it's taking so long for it to get rescheduled, to be quite honest. Because it's like, well, they're doing fine. They're still profiting, having great profit margins, even with this huge tax bill. So, and that's not always necessarily true. They're looking at the big people, like the big wigs, the people who are really making money, and they're looking like, oh, well, they're fine. But you have those mom and pop shops and the smaller dispensaries who are not fine. There's some people who are just delaying that tax bill. We have people in the state that likely won't make it this first full year because of the tax bill that's coming up in a month. in 5 days. I'm sorry. So, it just kind of depends. But yeah, I completely agree with what you said. Like that's a huge part of it that I don't think enough of people really talk about, to be honest.
Your average person doesn't know that cannabis is not federal legal. They think it's legal on the state side, and they think it's federal legal when they hear it. Like they don't understand all the rules and regulations. Like I have customers daily who we can take debit cards, but we can't take credit cards. And I have customers daily trying to use their credit card. I'd be like, nah, you got to use a PIN. They'd be like, oh no, it's my credit card. I'm like, nah, cannabis is not federally legal. You can't use your credit. Like banks don't mess with us. And they'd be like, oh, are you serious? Oh, I didn't know that. I'd be like, yeah, man. Like I get that more than anything. People trying to use their credit card to buy cannabis, and they don't understand that it's not federally legal.
Talk about profit margins and sustainability. What are your next steps? What are your goals? Outside of the education and getting more people to be registered to get their cards. That'll definitely help. With foot traffic coming into the dispensary. For the next 1, 2, 3 to 5 years, what are the next steps you see yourself growing your dispensary out there in Mississippi?
Well, outside of just my hopes and dreams of recreational, for medicinal, my medicinal path is a lot of what you said, though, to be honest, increasing the patient count. That's literally my number one goal in Mississippi is getting more patients registered. So I'm constantly hitting the grounds at different events that are not even fully cannabis related, trying to get people in the education so that we can increase the count. But also that goes with that's hand in hand with advocacy on a political level. So constantly lobbying to the legislators in Mississippi for them to understand the importance of making it easier for our residents to have access to medical cards. There are a lot of people who want medical cards in Mississippi, but they're unable to because they don't have one of the 25 conditions listed, but they have conditions that very much can be helped and aided by cannabis. One of the biggest things, one of the top priorities for me, especially as a woman, is women's health. So fibromyalgia, PCOS, fibroids, all of those things that happen in women's health that can be alleviated by cannabis. So like even from my story, and I know you kind of asked about my plan, but now I just thought about this. It's probably important to bring up. But like was diagnosed with fibroids. I've had fibroids for a long time. And at the time when I had my surgery for fibroids, which was last year, I was still living in Los Angeles, California. I was able to get some of the best healthcare because I was at Google, but I have not taken medicine since 2016. That was a part of like my journey, my holistic journey. So I stopped taking medicine like I said, in 2016. And so approaching a major surgery, I've never had a major surgery before. Approaching that surgery, I told my doctor about that and the plan of, hey, like, I know you got to put me to sleep. I mean, you're cutting through 7 layers of skin. Like, I get that. But I don't take medicine. And so she put me on a plan to where, I did do the anesthesia. I woke up. And after that, I never had to take any narcotics or any hard, medicine, Percocets, none of that. I had, the prescriptions, but once I woke up, I took Motrin, Tylenol, and Advil for the first week or so. And then after that, I medicated with cannabis because that's what I do for pain relief. And so those are things that I think are really extremely important in Mississippi. You don't have to, be exposed to opioids on that level, because if you have something like cannabis, if you have cannabis, and that's really extremely important because Mississippi is one of the top states for opioid addiction. Top 3, matter of fact, I think right behind West Virginia. So these kind of things are extremely important for people to understand. So that's one of the biggest things for me is like the patient count, but trying to make sure that conditions like some of the condition that I had is added to the list so people can medicate properly and don't also have to deal with drug addiction. But also just kind of going back to like my plan for the business. Once again, like I said, increasing that and then maintaining my patients once they come through the store. And once they get there, they usually don't leave, which is a great thing. So, making sure that my patients are retained as well. So that's really, really big. And then just continuing to grow. So I would love to open up a second store. So I want to open up a second store in Mississippi. Trying to figure out exactly where that is right now because there are a lot more dispensaries popping up. So I want to make sure that's strategic. So, Farm Daughter number 2 in Mississippi, hopefully coming soon, at some point. And then after that, like I'm also going to be starting a product line. So the product line is going to be once again kind of focused on women's health. So that's something that's going to come up probably in the like farther future. But I'm working on the logo, the branding, all that good stuff right now. So that's a piece that is just kind of like my baby as well. Like, of course, Farm Daughter, I'm extending like a brand, the brand of Farm Daughter and Curio Wellness, who has helped me so much with just my journey in cannabis. So, extending that brand in Mississippi, but also kind of like my brand that's a part of the company that I founded called Luna Soul, which is the DBA. We're doing a DBA as Farm Daughter in Mississippi. So Luna Soul is also going to have that product as well in Mississippi. And really, for me, my extension is going to be, I'm planning on extending throughout the South. The Deep South is really like my base and where I'm focused. If it extends beyond Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, great, Georgia, great. But that really is my focus, is trying to make a big impact on the South because I feel like we need it so much. Like we really need cannabis and we really need education on the benefits of cannabis. So that's really, really my prime focus is like, extending that Farm Daughter brand as well as expanding my product that's going to be really focused on women's health. So that's kind of like my long-term plan.
That product line, is it flower? Is it edible? Like what type of products do you have in that line coming up? Was it's too early?
Yeah.
Too early.
So I haven't fully told people about like what exactly is going to be in the product line, but it's not going to be flower. So since it's focused on women's health, you can kind of get an idea of exactly what kind of products I'll be focused on, but it won't be flower.
I love how, we didn't get too deep into the weeds about that, but talking about women's health, I think having platforms like this, like a podcast, kind of circumvents the system to where y'all can't advertise and do certain things on social media, but through mediums like this, you can talk about and have conversations that may not be had in other places and in official advertising and stuff like that. You shared your fibroid situation over the phone while we were scheduling this. My mother had fibroids. I have aunts that have fibroids. I'm sure Benz and Sean both have women in their lives. So just talking about that and cultivating those conversations and talking about the benefits of cannabis, flower, whatever you want to call it, is super important as well. So I'm honored that we'll be able to share this story and so many other stories and the stories that come from this conversation from our listeners that are having. So yeah, we definitely appreciate you sharing that.
We didn't even talk about terpenes and just like the science behind it. You know what I'm saying? We didn't even talk about the science.
We got Sean here. We got the butt. If you want to
listen.
He
laughing because I've been telling him about the terpenes.
Chop it up.
Look,
I'm like, yo, we've been smoking so long for so many years.
Yes. It's so many things. And like,
right, so
I'm trying to get my patients on it.
What's the limousine? What's that do?
The
what?
To the limousine.
Let's go. I don't know none of this stuff.
Lemonade?
The limonene.
The limonene or the linalool.
Yeah.
Linalool, that's another one. That's down here.
Yeah, linalool. That's a good terpene for indicas.
Okay.
Yes.
Give you a little pain relief, a little sedative.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm at work. My patient's trying to pronounce all these medications. He's saying it wrong.
Caryophyllene, all of them.
My favorite is myrcene.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh
That's my
yeah.
favorite. I'm a
That's a good
Mercy.
pain relief.
I'm
Well,
a
look,
Mercy.
I can say when it comes to the terpenes, like I'm constantly trying to get my patients to understand the aromatic benefits of terpenes and how
Mhm.
important they are to like the cannabis, the makeup of a cannabis plant. So people are so focused on like THC, high THC, high
Yes.
THC.
Mhm.
But if you have that high THC, you have like no terps, like
Would you
what's
doing that?
the
I tell people
you,
THC is the car, but the terpenes is the gas that runs the car. Like
thank
that's
you.
what it is. Like you got to
Thank you.
THC is going to get you there, but them THC you can get in the car, but the terpenes is going to get you to where you want to be. That's the gas.
Exactly. It's going to put you in the direction, right? So it's kind
Hmm.
of like it's going to drive you in the direction you need to go in. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like you need to go to, I don't know, the doctor or whatever. You need to do this, or you need to go to
Yep.
school. You need to go here. You can't, you know what I'm saying? The terpene, it depends on what you're trying to do. You're trying to relax. Are you
Yep.
trying to, have some kind of energy? Are you trying to be focused? It's literally different. There's literally a whole wheel that we have that some people bring in that they're, nurse practitioners or doctors have given them. It's
Hmm.
a terpene wheel. And they
Yep.
say, well, I want to feel
Like
calm. And they
yeah,
like point to the wheel,
and they show
with
you
the
what
terp on
terpenes
it.
help you to get that. Yep.
Yes. Yes. They'll put their wheel like, I'm feeling like I need to feel, relaxed today. And then it's like, relax, liminal,
Hmm.
so it's
Hmm.
really important. It's super important to have those pieces of it. And so we've noticed in Mississippi when it comes to terpenes, like the folks who really, really know how to grow, they know how to cultivate and those terps,
Terpenes. Yeah.
and they even though we might have a low THC, some people our patients are picking up on the fact, oh, this is only 16% THC, but it has 3.63% terps. So it's what I need. But it's
Yep.
important. It's really, really important.
It is. It is important to with the terpenes because, like you said, you can have a low percent THC but high terpenes. That thing gonna smack you.
It's gonna
Then you,
smack.
and then you can have a high THC and with low terps, and that joint not do nothing. And you'd be like, man, I
Mm-mm.
wasted my money on this. I thought it was gonna be this is 36%, but you ain't look at your terpenes, man. That's
Mm-mm.
all. That's what it's about.
Where a seasoned bud tender itself comes in.
Hey, I had to learn that. I had to learn that when working in the when I first started working in manufacturing, that's when I started to learn. When I was making the gummies, I started to learn the different terpenes because I was smoking just off of THC. I was like, I want the high stuff, you know. I want the high THC because that's going to get me where I want. But then I learned and started doing research on terpenes and what they do, and then I started to smoke buy my flower just off of the terpenes that I like because I'm an indica guy. I I'm always happy, so I don't need to smoke sativa to be happy. I'm an indica guy. When I want to smoke, when I smoke flower, I want to go to the moon. That's what I want to go to. So I like myrcene, I like caryophyllene, I like linalool. I want to feel it. I want to be very relaxed. That's what I want. And of course, you have to have your sativas that you can't be smoking indicas all day because then you're going to be you're going to be slow in motion all day. So I do have my sativas in the daytime and things because I am a father. I can't be doing indicas all day. I got to be a father, so I do smoke my sativas to stay focused and things of that nature.
Also, it's so many different ways you can medicate too, like for patients. So we have some folks that come in. I have tablets that are literally pills. So they
Hmm.
come in and they get those pills with the mix of THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, whatever it is that they need. So that's
What
important too. Is kind of
how high can y'all go in milligrams in medical in Mississippi?
That's a good question. So it depends. So with the gummies, like we have some 300 milligram gummies, but the state really frowns upon anything higher than 300 milligrams. And so lately
Mm,
it's been really difficult to get more than 250
okay.
milligrams of like gummies, or
Hmm.
any kind of like those things, edibles when it comes to that. And concentrates are low, 1 gram concentrates.
Okay. Do y'all have
Yeah.
RSO?
Have what?
Do y'all have RSO in Mississippi?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all have elixirs?
No.
Oh wow. Okay.
We have powders, some hashes. We don't
Yeah.
have keef.
Okay.
So yeah. So it's
Gotcha.
we're kind of
You
still
have
some
to be
stuff
key
we're
stage.
working on.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how Maryland was when it first started. So
Okay. Okay.
y'all right on cue. They didn't give
Okay.
Marylanders everything when it first started.
Okay, that's good to know because I didn't know that. So that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's how it is. Yeah. They gonna work it in.
Okay.
Opportunities on the horizon. Let's get it.
There we go.
Ooh, got you. So
Yeah.
we got 420 coming up. Any big plans at the location, or what are you guys doing there?
Yeah. So we have a couple of things. So we have pop-ups every single day with some of our top vendors that we really work with a lot. So we have some vendors on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then we are sponsoring, like I said, the golf tournament that I kind of mentioned earlier in Olive Branch, which is always a big event, yearly event. And thankfully, it kind of landed on the week of 420. So that's great. So we're really getting to touch the community there. And also, I'll be speaking at the Mississippi Cannabis Festival on 420 on that Saturday for a panel focused on women in cannabis. So that's really, like I said, I've been talking about kind of women's health, but that's going to be really exciting to kind of talk about that. And that this is the second year they've had the Cannabis Festival. So it's, I feel really honored to kind of be on that panel for the second year of it being open. So yeah, we got a lot of great plans for 420, and then we have some amazing sales too. So the second week, the week of 420, everything, the whole store is going to be 25% off. So we're excited to get kind of people in to take advantage of all the deals that we have that week.
And if somebody wanted to find you, what's your address? We get in contact with you. Google search. How would they do that?
Instagram.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're in Mississippi, if you Google Foreign Daughter, it's the only foreign daughter in the state in Olive Branch. But we're located at 8101 Hacks Cross Road, 2 minutes from state line, from the Tennessee state line, right off Hacks Cross, which is one of the major roads leading from Tennessee to Mississippi. So yeah, 8101 Hacks Cross, Suite 100. We're on Instagram. That's Far Daughter Mississippi. So we're on Instagram, and it's Far Daughter Mississippi as well on Facebook as well. So yeah, that's how to follow us.
Well, such an amazing conversation. Again, Daria, we appreciate you joining us, giving us your time. You're super busy, being that trailblazer and that pioneer in the space where you typically don't see people like us in it. So that's going to be inspirational.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited. This was a great conversation. I feel like I got to hit a lot of different things that are important. So hope your listeners enjoy everything and learn more about cannabis, and definitely reach out to us if they want to learn any more. So it's just so much. It's a very, very it's a great industry, but it's just so much to learn.
Sean, again, thank you for gracing us with your presence, sir.
Hey man, I just want to thank everybody. Thanks for everybody being on. I appreciate it. It was a lovely conversation. Glad to be a part of it.
And I'm used to saying we 2 of 12. We are 3 of 12 gentlemen that are making an impact in the community through conversations like this and inspiring the culture. So thank you, fellas. And we'll see our listeners on the next episode. Yeah.
Somebody with these terpenes.